Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Ieuter Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 stations across this great state of Michigan, this great cold state of Michigan, and some parts of the state, snowy state of Michigan. But it is wintertime, and we are definitely right in the heart of winter here now. Maybe you're happy about that. Maybe you're not happy about that. If you are unhappy, are you unhappy enough to say, I've had it and I'm going to Florida? Or pick your southern state. I find occasional southern getaways to be nice and fun and relaxing. Would I want to live in Florida? Absolutely not. There is not another state that I would want to call home. And I've seen a bunch of them. And many of them are beautiful in their own way, and they have a lot to offer, folks who love the outdoors. But is it someplace that I would want to live? Nope. I'm a fanboy for Michigan. I admit it. I grew up in this state. I love this state. I've spent my career in this state. I promote this state. And I think I'm probably going to die in this state. I don't know when that is. I don't think it's right away. But if it is, it is. Speaking of winter, though, I keep thinking about, the winters on the west side of the state when I was a kid growing up, and I just feel like those were good old-fashioned Michigan winters. And for some reason, I saw some video the other day of the blizzard of 78. Now, a lot of you aren't even going to remember or know anything about the blizzard of 78, but I'm telling you what, that blizzard of 78, that was the real deal. I was sophomore or junior at Ferris at the time. They closed school down for days. We had so much snow that I remember kids jumping out of the second-story windows of the dorms into, 10-foot snowdrifts? 131, US 131 that ran through the campus, and it was the only north-south route at that time. The freeway wasn't built yet, so that was a big deal. It was closed down, and that was a big deal. 131 was closed down. There was no traffic on it. So what did we do? Well, schools closed for 3 days. We had to get to the supply store, the party store. We had to pick up supplies. So we dragged a sled down 131 to the party store to get stocked up for the blizzard of 78. I mean, that was wintertime. I don't think I want to see winter like that anymore. But, snow and cold is good. It's making ice. I've seen a lot of ice fishing pics. My friends who are ice fishermen sending me pictures. And God bless you for getting out there. I mean, it's been a while since you could get out there. Now, Saginaw Bay, by the time you hear this show, I don't know. Some of the local folks who know the Bay very well have been venturing out. I would not advise, if you are coming in from outside the area and do not know the Bay, be careful. I'm not saying it's dangerous out there. I'm not one of those people who says ice is never safe, because of course it is. I'm saying if you're not a local and don't have years of experience out there, just be a little bit careful. Pick your days and maybe go out there with people who do have experience out there on the Bay. Now, the inland lakes, that's a whole different ballgame. Most of the inland lakes have locked up tight. And pike spearing. Oh, I love pike spearing. I love the pike spearing videos. If you have video looking through that big hole in the ice and watching the underwater world and a gator comes sneaking in there and you have it on video and you want to share it, I would love to see it and I would love to post it. I think those videos are very cool. Send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That is the best way, in fact, to get in touch with me, and that's the best way to get me any kind of content. mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. I get a lot of Facebook messages. Eventually, I will see those, but it's not the best way to reach me. Send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Okay, some dates coming up here. Monday, the 20th. Tickets go on sale for our big Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction. It's our 8th annual event. It will be Saturday, March 1st at the Great Hall in Midland. 8th annual. It's interesting because the way this event started was I had been doing emceeing and auctioneering and speaking at different church groups around the state, often at wild game dinners and usually as fundraisers. And I'm happy to do those, although I have cut back on the number of them. I'm happy to do them. And I got thinking, why am I doing all of these fundraising wild game dinners at different churches, but we're not doing anything at my church, Trinity Monitor? So at a pastor's appreciation dinner at Dixie Dave's restaurant 8 years ago, Lyle Cloa was sitting across the table from me, and he was part of the athletic boosters group. And I said, Lyle, I want to pitch this idea to you because I think the athletic boosters are the only group that at the time could pull this off. I said, I think we should have a wild game dinner at Trinity. And now 8 years later, it's grown into this very big event. It always sells out. We have great food. We have great fellowship. We have great prizes, a great live auction. On my Facebook page, I have posted a link to get those tickets. And again, it always sells out. That's for the 8th annual Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction. Saturday, March 1st in Midland at the Great Hall. Next Friday, the 24th, they are drawing the Pure Michigan Hunt winners. I am one of them. There are 3 winners. We don't know who the other 2 are, but I am one of them. So there are room for 2 more of you to win. We will find out who you are on the 24th. I already know that I have won. The problem with me making that statement is, well, I like to put it out in the universe, just kind of put the concept out there so the world can accept it. But honestly, if I ever really did win after saying I was going to win, that would cause, I don't want to say an uproar, but it would get people's attention. So maybe I just better shut up and win the Pure Michigan Hunt quietly. Looking down the road on your calendar, leave Friday, July 25th. X that off. That's the 2nd annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing to benefit MUCC's Youth Camp. Personally, I have to admit, I'm looking forward to springtime. I don't have spring fever yet, but I am looking forward to spring. I'm looking forward to turkey hunting. My grandson Trent says he wants to get into turkey hunting. I love turkey hunting. I would love to introduce Trent to turkey hunting this spring. I'm also looking forward to getting the new Angler Quest out on Saginaw Bay and chasing some walleye. I don't have that boat yet, but I'm talking and working with Mr. Angler Quest, Quest, Brad Dupuis, and I will be running an Angler Quest again this summer. I had a chance to see those boats in person last week at the Ultimate Fishing Show in Novi. I had seen them before. I did a Wednesday Night Live with Brad where we could introduce you to those boats. Very excited about that. Oh, also, if you are looking to turkey hunt this spring and you hunt in one of the limited quota areas and you want to apply ahead of time to make sure you get your tag, January is the time to do that. I don't worry about that, because I take Southern Michigan private land, hunt ZZ, and that never sells out. And that I tell you what, If you have access to Southern Michigan private land, ZZ is your hunt because it opens, the third weekend in April, whenever the turkey season opens, and it goes right on through May. It's like a 6-week hunt. It's the one to get, in my opinion. Okay, coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show after the break, Jay Woiderski of Sturgeon for Tomorrow, the Black Lake chapter. He talks about their upcoming Sturgeon Shivaree in a couple of weeks. Looks like they will have ice this year. I want to ask him, look at if you are here to protect sturgeon, and I know I'm playing devil's advocate here. Jay, why are you guys having a sturgeon spearing season? Then Karl Ieuter of the Ieuter Insurance Group answers the question that pops up every year. If you take your vehicle on the ice, are you covered by your insurance? Then Marty Szeliga, the Airborne Angler, talks about the service he's offering big water ice anglers. In our second hour, Louis Good. I stumbled on his videos online. He has LouisWildlifeCameras, a YouTube channel. He's put up trail cameras across Michigan and come up with some wonderful images. We'll talk about that. Tyler Mihai of MUCC. Sergeant Mike Mshar answers this week's question. Can you put a deer or any animal out of its misery legally if you're not a licensed or a law enforcement officer? And in hour number 3, we're talking northern Michigan bobcat hunting with Chris Kreiner. And, of course, we wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. Busy show. Glad you're with us. My name is Mike Avery. My email address is mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. I'd love to hear from you. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on WKNW 1400 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination. Whether it's ice fishing, open water, springtime, fall, it doesn't matter. Linwood Beach is the perfect location right there on the west shore of Saginaw Bay near the beautiful small town of Linwood. Go to the end of Linwood Road, turn right, and you will run into Linwood Beach and Saginaw Bay. They are a great source of information as to what the ice conditions are. Now, they're not going to tell you if it's safe to go out or not. They will tell you what they see from shore. They will tell you what they are hearing from other anglers, but you will have to make the decision whether to stay or go on your own. If you are heading out on the bay, Linwood Beach is a great place to access the bay. And if you want to stay in close, you can catch panfish in the marina all day long. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Let's turn our attention now to a fish a little bigger than a panfish, a little bigger than a walleye, a little bigger than a muskie, a little bigger than a king salmon. It's the biggest fish I can think of that swims in our great state of Michigan, and it is sturgeon. I love these fish. These prehistoric fish are so ugly, they're beautiful. And here in Michigan, we've had people that have been really working hard for years to preserve, promote, and protect these giant sturgeon, including the Sturgeon for Tomorrow group, sturgeonfortomorrow.org Black Lake chapter. Jay Woiderski is the president of that group and joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Jay, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thank you. How are you?
I am doing great, and I'm excited for you guys because coming up here in just a couple of weeks, the big Sturgeon Shivaree, and it looks like you're going to have ice for it this year.
We've been waiting for this one for a few years now to have ice up front so that we didn't have to stress over the planning of it.
Tell me about this event coming up.
Well, we'd like to call this one of the world's shortest fishing seasons. We've had it last as long as, 35 minutes or up to 5 days. But more likely it's closer to that, within the first hour.
And what we're talking about is sturgeon spearing. I think it's there on Black Lake, isn't it?
It is on Black Lake, yes.
is it a lottery system? Can you buy these licenses? Do you just need a fishing license? How does that work?
Anybody in the state is eligible to fish with just a regular fishing license, but you do need to go to the registration site through the DNR.
And is this like a sturgeon spearing stamp or what is it?
There's nothing. You just have to be registered with the DNR.
Okay.
They just officially go into their website and look up register for sturgeon season, and it'll direct you exactly what you have to do.
Is there a size limit on the fish when you spear them?
There is not a size limit. That was talked about many times through the years, but our goal is to protect the mature breeding adult. So we figured if they take some of the smaller fish, which we have been planning now for about 20 years, we as, the DNR and MSU working with that, and, the tribes now are heavily involved in this, that we want to protect the adult breeding fish. So if they take some of the small ones, it doesn't hurt the population so much.
Well, let's talk about the protecting fish. I think of your group, again, as preserve, promote, protect sturgeon, yet there is an event that allows people to spear sturgeon. Now, I'm playing devil's advocate here, Jay. You know this, but why allow this? Why do this?
Well, this is something that, I like to tell people that's in our heritage. But, it's a very well-regulated, very watched over season. I mean, we're allowed only technically 7 fish per year for the entire state. That has no harm on the population with those limits in place. We're down to our capable harvest of 1.2% of total adult breeding fish in the lake, which, isn't very many fish. That comes out to about 14 fish, and the natives get half and we get half.
I got you. But what it does do is give you an opportunity to get together and promote the resource. Absolutely.
That's one of our biggest functions, is to let people know that the sturgeon are here and that we are protecting them. There's a lot of information goes out through this weekend, through a lot of people in many different directions. Those that do appreciate the harvesting of the fish and those that don't.
So what do you mean those that don't? There are people who are against this?
Absolutely. We don't get a lot of feedback on that part of it because they know it is such a well-regulated season. But there are, as you know, in every group, there are people that are against harvesting.
Oh, I got you. Just that group. Okay.
Yeah.
So how does this work? Is sturgeon spearing like pike spearing, just on a bigger scale?
It's pretty much exactly what it is. Yeah, we through the years have used different kind of decoys to lure the fish in, and you throw the spear, and that's the end of the game.
So will you find them cruising along the bottom, or you ever see them suspended?
Both, mostly on the bottom. They are pretty much, bottom-prone fish, but there's been several of them seen that come right up against the ice. They travel in different levels of the water, different times.
I didn't think they ate other fish. I thought they ate really, really small things. So what kind of a decoy do you use to lure them in?
Well, basically it is like a white, just wooden fish decoy. But people have used many different things. I actually took a fish in Wisconsin last year and used my nice pewter coffee cup that worked real well to have a fish come right into it. So you just never know.
So would they be coming in to eat the decoy, or is it just curiosity?
I believe it's just curiosity. They will pick up dead fish off the bottom of the lake. And of course, mostly their diet is the crayfish and mussels and things like that.
Yeah. So what's the visibility there on Black Lake? How deep are you guys spearing?
Right now, I'm sitting in just over 17 feet, and I'm just making out the bottom. It's not real good yet, but we got a couple weeks to go. I expect we'll be able to see in 22, 23 feet.
That's deep. That's pretty impressive.
That's my normal fishing range for sturgeon.
Is it really?
Anywhere from 15 to 25 feet.
So what's it like when you're sitting over that hole? I've seen pike come in that'll take your breath away, but to have a sturgeon come in, what's that like?
I can tell you, you call it buck fever. You've never seen a buck like this because you don't get to see these every year. They're far and few between for most fishermen. There's a lot of guys have participated for 15, 20 years and have never seen a sturgeon. So I expect for those guys, that first one is going to look like the 40-point buck.
Well, good luck, and it sounds like a lot of fun. And then after this event, looking forward to springtime, going back to the protecting the resource. You guys will be back there on the river again, too, won't you?
Yes, we will. That will start somewhere about the 15th of April, and it will run till about the 15th of June. And we will have people staffed up along the upper Black River to make sure nobody's up in there poaching.
Well, I think back to years ago when the original Sturgeon General, Brenda Archambault, you now have that title, by the way, the original Sturgeon General, and the early days of Sturgeon for Tomorrow, what this group and what the people in your part of the state have accomplished and the impact you've made on that resource, it's very impressive, Jay.
It is, and we appreciate the notoriety of knowing what we have done, because the population was down at that time when they did the survey in 97 to about 400 or less adult breeding fish in the lake. We are now at a level it's about 1,200 adult breeding fish. So it's come a long ways, but they are such a slow-growing fish that the big results will show up in the next 10 to 15 years for all the fish that have been planted for the last 20 years.
That's an interesting point. This isn't like managing a population of walleye where you can make an impact in just a couple of years. What you're doing takes a while to pay off.
Yes, it takes many years. I mean, this is generations of work.
Got to be pretty patient.
Yes. Yes, you do. That's for sure. Because, like I said, I would love to see the results, but I'm probably not going to be here long enough to see the final results of where we want it to be in all of northern Michigan. I mean, Black Lake is getting close. Mullet Lake, Burt Lake still got plenty of work to go there, and that's where I really would like to fish.
But we're seeing this across the state, though. Down where I live in the Saginaw River, the guys jigging for walleye in the river routinely catch sturgeon. St. Clair, Lake St. Clair, St. Clair River, a phenomenal population of sturgeon. We're seeing them down in the southwest part of the state too. So there is an impact. You are seeing a difference, I got to believe.
Absolutely. I mean, those fish that are in the Saginaw Bay down there, those are actually Black Lake fish. About half of those come from a different hatchery, but half actually come out of Black Lake.
So how long does it take a fish of, I don't know, how long are they when you stock them, when you plant them?
Basically somewhere around 5 inches.
Okay, how long does that take fish? How long does it take that fish to get to, say, sexual maturity? When do they start to spawn?
The males are a little quicker at it than the females, and they can be probably somewhere between 12 and 17 years. We figure the females are closer to the 20 to 25-year mark.
Man, yeah. This is not a short-term game you're playing here.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Well, congrats, Jay. Congrats on this. What's the website? SturgeonForTomorrow.org is the website. Is that where people can learn more about the Shivaree coming up too?
Yes. And like I said, we do have, for the Shivaree, we start that Friday afternoon. We open at 10 at 2 o'clock. It runs till 10 o'clock. We have entertainment and plenty of things to do. We have a poker run that'll happen Saturday, but you need to be registered Friday. We have a fishing contest that will be Saturday. That needs to be registered by Friday night. And then we open at 10 again Saturday morning. It'll probably start pretty early because we have the fish coming back in.
Sure.
So we're usually around there about 8 o'clock.
Gotcha. Well, and also looking forward to a few months from now, make sure you got that golf game sharpened up for this summer for the outing in West Branch.
We will be there, and we had such a great time last year. I couldn't tell you that, if there's anybody out there on the fence about signing up for that, sign up. What a great time.
I appreciate that, Jay. Jay Woiderski of the Sturgeon for Tomorrow group, SturgeonForTomorrow.org, SturgeonForTomorrow.org. The big Shivaree coming up in just a couple of weeks. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to answer the question, can you take your vehicle on the ice and still have coverage? Karl Ieuter of the Ieuter Insurance Group will answer that. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Sandusky in the Thumb, WMIC 660 AM 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. I was talking about the weather, talking about how cold it's been. Checking in with Michigan's meteorologist, Mark Torregrossa. He said cold weather is going to be around for a while, which means Mother Nature's making ice. How much ice do you need to get out there? That's not a question I'm going to answer. That's a question only you can answer. But one question I get every year related to being on the ice and ice fishing is, if you drive your truck on the ice, is your insurance void, or does it continue your coverage while you're on the ice? Listen, I'm no insurance expert, but I have friends who are experts. The folks at the Ieuter Insurance Group. I have been working with them, and I've had them for many, many years do all of my business insurance and my personal insurance. They're great people, and I trust what they say. So to answer that question, now Karl Ieuter of Ieuter Insurance, and by the website is Ieuter.com, Ieuter.com, Ieuter. Karl's with us on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Karl, welcome back. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
I am doing wonderful. Before we get to discussing the topic at hand, though, have you had a chance to get out, do anything fun? You been outdoors at all?
I was on the sleds the last 2 weekends, so we're starting to get more and more snow up north in Michigan.
Did you have to go to the Upe or Northern Lower?
No, I went near the Gaylord area. There was still enough snow, and then when I was leaving the Indian River on Monday morning, we got like 6 more inches, so hopefully we can finally ride around there.
Perfect.
And the ice shanties are starting to go out on the lake. So
ice shanties, there you go. Yep.
Getting that time. I haven't put mine out yet, but there's some anglers out there.
Well, listen, with the weather going the way it is just a matter of time. And then the question becomes, Karl, and I've asked you this every year now for the last several years.
Yep.
Can you drive your vehicle, your truck, on the ice and still have coverage? If you go out on thin ice and you drop through, are you covered?
Yep. As long as you have full coverage, you still would be covered on your insurance. So it would pay. Obviously, your car would be ruined, and if you have comp and collision on it, you would be covered for an insurance claim.
Are you covered for recovery costs?
That it's going to vary by company, but you might not be able to get as much. A lot of times, there's a set limit on towing, so a bill to get your car out, it may not fully be covered. Every insurance company is a little bit different. But you probably only have $100 or $200, and I bet you the recovery is a lot more than that.
If every insurance company is different, then how do you know? Is this something you need to look into ahead of time?
Well, hopefully you're going out when the ice is safe, but just get as much high a limit of towing as insurance company will provide. And then, you have potential for pollution, and that is normally covered, too, on a policy. So the gas leaking from the tank, if you have to have that cleaned up, that's normally covered under your insurance policy.
Now, are we talking the same thing with sleds and quads? Because on Saginaw Bay, I mean, we've already had a few sleds go through. Same thing as a vehicle as far as insurance coverage?
Yep, same thing. Again, you have to have full coverage on it. So if you're just riding around with liability only, you're not going to have any coverage. But yeah, if you have full coverage on it and the sled, the quad, anything like that goes through, you would be covered. Okay,
so what about on this sled? I've got a new auger. I've got some ice rods. I've got maybe a shanty behind me. I got potentially, hundreds, if not a couple $1,000s worth of gear with me, and that all goes through. Are all of those pieces, all of that gear covered too?
That you should probably talk with your insurance agent, because you can get that covered. It depends what type of coverage you have on your homeowners, because it would actually come under your homeowners for your contents, or scheduling your equipment specially. Because if you schedule that type of equipment, you get all risk. So falling through the ice would be covered. But without scheduling it on your insurance policy, you may not be covered.
Can I just get an umbrella that covers everything?
An umbrella actually is for third party, so that is a claim against you, so not your own personal goods.
Okay.
So, an umbrella is probably the best investment out there. Gives you additional $1 million of protection. Anything can happen. It'd give you some more protection for a low price to protect your assets.
So going back to the gear then, I understand what you're saying, maybe before we run out of time here. So ideally, I should probably just take a picture of my rig and my gear so I've got a proof that I had it all, and that way it helps me remember it too when it comes time to put the claim out for all this stuff.
Correct. Yep. It's definitely good to have pictures, and if anything happens, take pictures right afterwards, because those can be used in adjusting the claim. And same, any of your gear, because we all forget. I mean, if you have all that gear in your house and you have a house fire, you might not remember how many guns or fishing poles you have. So our phones are real easy to take pictures, and then, the memories are always there, and it'll make the claim a lot easier to do. Yeah,
but I'm a little reluctant to document it because if I take a picture, I know how many guns I have, but my wife doesn't know how many guns I have.
Yeah, I'm not going there.
Karl, always a pleasure. Karl Ieuter of the Ieuter Insurance Group, Ieuter.com, IEUTER.com. If you are looking for insurance people to work with, check out the folks at Ieuter. I trust them. I trust them with my own stuff. We'll take a break. When we come back, the Airborne Angler right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Carroll, WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM, and north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Why buy a bunch of different sets of expensive hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set and then snap on and zip on an outer shell of a different camo pattern in less than a minute? It's a great idea. I'm surprised nobody's thought of this before. Plus, if you need big sizes, 4, 5, 6X, VersaSkins can help you out. Or if you are a saddle hunter, VersaSkins makes jackets specifically for saddle hunters. Check them out online at VersaSkins, VersaSkins.com. That's VersaSkins.com. Or go to Amazon and do a search for VersaSkins brand on Amazon. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Michigan-based, family-owned. You know I love that. Turning our attention now, we're continuing on this ice theme that we've been on for the past few minutes. In fact, this whole hour as I look at it. Marty Szeliga is a guy who has become known as the Airborne Angler. He and I talked a few years ago. He says, Mike, I have this concept of what I want to do. And boy, has he really grabbed this concept and grown it into something that if you want to know what ice conditions are on Saginaw Bay, you go to Facebook and you look up the Airborne Angler. Because he has, I think, probably the most accurate and up-to-date reports out there. And Marty's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Hey, Marty, welcome back. How are you?
Hey, Mike. Good. Thanks for having me.
Congrats on what you've been able to accomplish. You've really turned this into a really viable program.
Yeah, thanks. I couldn't have done it without the support of fellow fishermen and small business community here. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy about it, and it's growing.
So what is the concept behind the Airborne Angler? What are you trying to do?
Well, just trying to get eyes on the ice conditions. This time of year, the NOAA satellite that takes pictures doesn't get very many because of the cloud cover we have. So I just try to fly and take pictures of the local launches and ice conditions just to give some perspective of what it's looking like and especially map out any open water.
So are you telling people go, no go, or are you just saying, look, this is what I'm seeing, this is the other anglers that are out there at this point?
Yeah, no, it's 1,100 square miles. I couldn't possibly tell somebody go, no go. It's just too large of an area. It's not all universal. So just what I provide is just one little piece of the puzzle they can use to make a decision. And I obviously recommend doing a lot more research than just looking at some pictures.
What can you see from the air? You can see ice or snow coverage, but you can't tell the depth or quality of the ice, I suspect.
Yeah, exactly. I can't tell how thick it is. My specialty is finding, open water pockets. I can fly low and see birds in them or see ripples on the water, and that for sure I know isn't good ice. And from that, it doesn't mean that the ice around there is any better, but at least it gives you something you have to 100% avoid. And as those pockets go away, you can look at ice and temperature charts and just kind of try to figure out, when to go start poking around.
We are recording this midweek as always. The forecast looks for some good cold weather. Are things starting to set up? Are things locking up out there on the bay?
Well, it's looking much, much better than the past 2 years. I would say 3/4 of the bay has ice coverage. The northwest corner broke away with the west winds we had. So we've got some water from about north of Pinconning towards Point Augre. And then we still have some stubborn pockets of open water. I just flew this morning at 7 a.m. and I took a video of a large amount of birds hanging out off Quanakasi. But in between there's fishermen fishing. And, if they did their due diligence and plotted a path using a buddy system in daylight, then they're out there fishing. So we've got some strong winds coming from the southwest this weekend, and then after that, I think there's a high of 7 on Monday. So there is potential if it can survive the winds.
So what we need is the bay to freeze all the way across so it's locked up so that it can't break off and drift, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's ideal. I mean, if you can get it, the northeast is always open to Lake Huron other than Charity Island. If you can get it to lock up between Augre and Sand Point, and then Charity Island is kind of an anchor, that helps tremendously. And, now it survived those sustained 20, 25 knot winds, and it held. So I think it's in really good shape, barring some catastrophic winds, which we might get. So it's still too early to tell, but there's high potential for a good ice season.
Marty, where do we see your reports? Where do we see your videos?
I post videos and pictures on a website. I know not everybody's on Facebook, so just theairborneangler.com. I try to keep that updated, and then obviously Facebook and Instagram. I just try to get it out there as much as I can. It's all free information thanks to the sponsors.
Well, Marty, keep up the good work. I mean, you took a concept, you ran with it, and you really are doing a great service for Saginaw Bay ice anglers. So keep up the good work. And I would encourage people to go to the website, airborneangler.com, or on Facebook as well to keep things up to date. Safe flying for you and good fishing when you get out there.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, and thank you for your advice in the past. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. We'll take a break here for the top of the hour. When we come back, Louis Good, a guy who has set up trail cameras to keep an eye on Michigan wildlife across the state, Tyler Mihai of MUCC, and this week's Ask Avery segment.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Ieuter Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to our number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And as I always say, I really believe the best way to listen to this show, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station. There you get your local news and weather and sports, even your local commercials. Maybe there's a sale or something you want to take advantage of. If you can't hear the show, or if you can't hear all 3 hours of the show on your local stations, it's nice to know there is a podcast version of the show that is available as a backup. I put the podcast on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, on my Facebook page. It's on all of the usual podcast outlets like Amazon, Audible, Apple Music, Google Play, iHeart, SoundCloud, Spotify, yada, 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 right on down to YouTube. It's not really a video that's on YouTube, but the podcast, the audio of the show, is a podcast that is on YouTube. Podcasting is an interesting thing these days, though, isn't it? It's really growing like crazy. The way that people are using podcasts and fine-tuning them and the evolution of the form of communication is pretty interesting. But you know what? It's also interesting the way this show, the Outdoor Magazine radio show, has evolved. I did my first show more than 30 years ago at a small station in Saginaw called WMAX. And it was a 1-hour show. And then it grew to 2 hours. And I got my first affiliate. It was WTRX in Flint. And from there, it just kind of grew. I found myself on a statewide Michigan radio network. That was a short-lived thing of a few years. Then I ended up on a different network. And these days on 33 stations around the state. Charlie Rood, who is in the radio studio with me right now, just reminded me that it was 20 years ago this week that I did my first show out of WSGW in Saginaw. He said, think about this too, Avery. He said, you're actually the 4th longest broadcaster on WSGW. I don't work here. But there's Art Lewis, Charlie Rood, who's the other one? Terry Henney, and then me. So for 20 years, I have worked out of this studio. Things looked a little different back then, right? We would record shows and then send them off to Lansing on a CD. These days, we just, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. You know what else is interesting? The way people, just in general, the way you are using technology to enjoy the outdoors and to share your outdoor experiences and memories. Louis Good is one of those guys. I came across his YouTube channel here a few weeks ago and fell in love with it. I was fascinated by the way Louis is using trail cameras, the same trail cameras, I think, that you and I use for hunting. Louis is using these to document wildlife in Michigan, and some of the images, some of the video he has is fascinating. So I thought he would be a great guy to talk with on the show, and he has graciously agreed to give me some time. And Louis Good is with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Louis, welcome to the show. Nice to have you along with us. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike. It's great to be here.
Tell me about how you got started with this concept of documenting Michigan wildlife like you do.
Yeah, so during the pandemic, I think there was a push for more people to get outside when we didn't want to, join inside to spread the disease. And my parents had a 10-acre property in the Southern Peninsula, and I enjoyed running trail cameras to see what was in our backyard, just in kind of an agriculture landscape with a little bit of mixed forest in there. And I was shocked to see what was in the backyard. I mean, we're talking red fox, we're talking big bucks, skunks, possums, coyotes, everything you can imagine down there. So that's how I really got started with it. I've always had an interest for the outdoors and wildlife specifically. That's kind of what got me into it.
These days, though, you've taken it to the next level. I mean, you've got cameras or have had cameras all across the state, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely increased my camera load since 2020. I run about 15 to 20 cameras across the state, ranging from southeast Michigan up to the Pigeon State Forest and up here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan as well.
Where do you set them? Are they all on private land? You put them out on public land, or a mix?
Yeah, I have a mix of private land from people I know, like my parents' property. And then I would say that probably 80% of my cameras are on public land that the state of Michigan owns. So just scouting like any normal hunter would, scouting for scat, scouting for rubs, scouting for tracks, anything that I can find to say, hey, this animal's here. I'm going to place a camera here, and we'll see what comes by. So
then, how do you protect these cameras? I mean, are they hidden? Are they locked in? Are you concerned? Have you had them stolen?
I've actually not had any cameras stolen since I started in 2020, which is kind of a shocker to me. But
yeah.
I do a little bit of protection to keep these cameras safe from people that might steal them. So I'll try to place them in areas that people don't go. In some areas, like Southeast Michigan, it's kind of hard. But you can find little pockets of forest that people don't find, even on areas that the public's hunting. I'll also, go at times where public land might not be used a lot. So during the deer hunting season, I might not have cameras out all the time. And if I do, they're tucked into areas where people might not be hunting deer. But I have a cable lock that wraps around the camera to the tree, lock it with a key. There's also security boxes that I have mainly for wildlife damage from black bears. They like to sniff your camera. They like to bite your camera. So just locks, cable locks, and security boxes do well as just trying to hide them the best I can on public land.
Are these cell cameras? Do you have to go out there and pull cards, or you just have them send the pictures to you?
So these are not cell cameras. I prefer using non-cell cameras. I think the quality of the videos are a lot better from the cameras I use compared to cell cameras. Also, I just like going out and hiking in the woods, going to get my camera. I enjoy being in the outdoors. I think that's part of the fun, to go get my camera, and then checking that SD card is like a kid waking up on Christmas morning every time.
So at what point did you realize, hey, this is interesting enough, I want to share this with other people?
Yeah, once I started doing a lot of videos this past year, I knew there was interest in it when I posted online. I got a lot of comments from family friends that I posted on my Facebook page really early on. And the more and more comments I got, the more and more I knew people would enjoy this. I had coworkers starting to tell me that they enjoyed it. A couple people here and there telling me that I needed to start posting. And once I got the videos that people would really like, I knew people would find it.
Well, and what are those videos? What have you captured, Louis?
Yeah, so some of the best videos I captured this past year, probably the black wolf is a really nice one in Marquette County that I captured on camera. Also got a giant bull moose on a snowmobile and ORV trail in Marquette County as well. One of the biggest moose I've seen on camera, and I see a lot of camera pictures out there, and this bull is up there with the greats. And then in the Pigeon State Forest, I got a collared elk cow and talked to the Michigan DNR about their last collaring efforts. It was back in 2016 was the best success for collaring. So, that cow is anywhere between 7 to 8 years old, and that's pretty old for a wild animal that's in those conditions.
Yeah, I'm on your YouTube channel right now, just scrolling through the different videos, and that moose is an absolute giant. To get that guy on video, what an accomplishment that was.
Yeah, it was shocking, and like I said, checking your SD card the first time after going to collect a camera that's been out for 3 months, you got butterflies in your stomach, and when I saw that guy, my heart started pumping. So it's great to see that moose get that big here. And for a lower 48 moose, he's big in any state in the lower 48. So it's great to see that. And I also think it's great to see, 3 or 4 more bulls using that area as well. So it's really neat to see.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that, Louis. I got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. We're talking with Louis Good, LouisWildlifeCameras. You can find him on Instagram, on his YouTube channel. He's a Michigan guy who has trail cameras set up around the state, and some of the images, some of the video he has are just absolutely spectacular. So we'll take a break. When we come back, more with Louis Good of LouisWildlifeCameras right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. That was, again, the first affiliate radio station affiliate that I had years and years ago. And you can hear us in the U, WMIQ, Iron Mountain, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine. All right, here's the sound. You know where I'm going with this. You want to hear it again? This sound right here. That is the sound of my Rapid River knife locking open. I just took it out of my pocket where it always is. Just check the edge on this. It's actually, I need to touch it up a little bit. But that's the thing about a Rapid River knife. They have a lifetime guarantee. If I can't get an edge on it, I can take it back or ship it back to the shop in Rapid River on US 2 just east of the city, and they'll take care of it for me. They will buff it all up, they will clean it up, and they'll put a new edge on this thing that's like a razor. Handmade by craftsmen in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. I think a good knife is something that will last you your lifetime, and you'll hand it down to the next generation. If you use the promo code Avery10, that's Avery10, you can get 10% off on your order. That's on the website, rapidriverknifeworks.com, or in person at the shop. And I would encourage you, if you can, to stop by that shop again on US 2 just east of Rapid River. It is very, very impressive. Right now, the folks at Rapid River are involved in a bear hunt giveaway. It's out west. I can't remember what state it is, but if you go to the website, rapidriverknifeworks.com, you can sign up to win that bear hunt. Chris Durson of Rapid River will be on the show with me next week to talk more about this. But again, the sound of my Rapid River knife locking back open, rapidriverknifeworks.com. While you are online, of course, go to my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. But I would encourage you to search for Louis Wildlife Cameras. That is the concept that Louis Good came up with during COVID, when he started putting cameras out, just regular trail cameras out, and he was amazed at what he was finding just in his family's backyard. He's expanded the concept. He's got these cameras off all across the state now. Louis, I got to ask you in particular, let's talk about some of these, like the video of the black wolf. How was that camera set up, and did you know what were you looking for with that setup?
Yeah, so right around that setup, there's a little wetland to the right of that camera, and usually a wetland kind of brings in a variety of wildlife that likes to use the area. It's actually in a logging area that was done a little bit ago, but I had no idea that black wolf was there. I had no insight on that, just a lucky camera placement and a great video. I usually call what I do 50% luck and 50% skill, and I would definitely say that's the 50% luck side for that wolf coming across.
Well, speaking of the skill side, though, you are trained in this area, right? You're a wildlife researcher, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's correct. And it takes a lot to understand a camera placement. I talk to a lot of people in school a lot of people at work, and they're always asking me tips and tricks on camera placements, and I've gotten really good at it in the past couple of years, but it's taken a lot of practice, a lot of trial and error. So camera placement is key, and also, the areas you scout and kind of guessing where wildlife's coming across is also key as well.
Well, speaking of camera placement, I'm glad you brought this up, because the video of the black wolf seems to be the camera is at a little lower angle than some of your other cameras, or is that just my perspective?
No, you're totally right with that. So for the moose videos, I'm mounting that camera probably 4 feet high, while this wolf camera that I placed is probably around maybe 1.5 to 2 feet off the ground.
Okay.
So any place I'm scouting for large ungulates like elk and moose, I'm hanging that camera a little bit higher than I would for wolves, deer, black bear, sandhill crane, any smaller mammals as well.
Let's go back to this moose video, which is absolutely spectacular. Close-up video of Michigan bull moose. Did you know that there were moose in the area? Is that what you hoped to capture?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the start of that video, I'm actually imitating a bull moose with my hands as a rack. So, I've been scouting that area for the past, I would say, 1.5 years now. Me and one of my buddies were black bear hunting, and we were baiting one day, and we decided to drive down the road just a little bit further, and we saw these big moose tracks there. And it ended up being a cow after, checking the camera early on. But, cows are bringing in bulls during the rut. This area is pretty far outside the core moose range if you really look at the core moose range in the Upper Peninsula, which is near Republic and in between Michigan and Highway 41, US 41 right there. So these cows are bringing in these bulls pretty far outside, and it's interesting because during July they'll start to show up into September, and then October comes and they're still there, but then they'll start to fade out in November. So it's interesting to see that. But yes, I knew there were moose there, and that's why I placed the camera.
This big guy, though, I mean, he comes in. I think I remember at one point you can actually hear a bull grunting as he comes in, right? Yeah,
absolutely. There's a couple videos I have of just loud vocalization from bull moose, almost like a scream, really. It's really shocking to hear that, and that's why I love the Browning cameras. They have great audio, great video, and that's what I primarily use along with Bushnell cameras. So, yeah, it was really cool to see. We got them in late September, kind of starting the rut, and then a couple days later on my camera, I got some really good, videos of bulls chasing a yearling cow.
Well, and that big bull puts on such a display for you. I mean, he comes right up to the camera. It's the most impressive video of a Michigan bull moose I've ever seen, Louis.
Yeah, it's really impressive. People have been telling me they haven't seen a moose that big. There's some people that have commented on my videos saying, "Wow, I had no idea bull moose were here." Just moose in general. So it's really shocking to see an animal that size just walking in the woods with paddles that are 5 feet wide.
You know what else was interesting? On that same trail that those moose were walking down, you've also got video of side-by-sides running down that thing in the daylight.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really like putting the side-by-side videos in there because it shows that both people and wildlife can use the same areas, and that wildlife will respond to people and kind of use the areas when people aren't there. I have videos of bull moose at dark. I have them during the day. So even during the day, bull moose are still using that area. So it's really impressive that wildlife can understand when people are around and when not to use the area. I also got 2 videos of a yearling cow that I've personally seen in person as well, kind of, two side-by-sides being able to see the same moose that I saw. So it's really interesting to see that. It's great to see other people out seeing Michigan moose.
Okay, and then you set your sights on Michigan elk. Tell me about that setup.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did like 2 or 3 days scouting the pigeon during the summer, just looking for elk sign. Elk tracks are just a little bit bigger than whitetail, so it's kind of easy to spot them. And a great place to start looking is between the Michigan DNR habitat management and viewing areas, they call them, for elk. Those are great areas. They'll walk between those paths. So I started there. Those are great areas to look and scout. And then I came across a hill on a dirt road near one of the viewing areas, and I just see, big elk tracks right in the mud, right on the road. So I walk up this hill, and there's just a great tree right above the hill to put it on, and it was a great area for, I would say, probably up to 10 to 15 different elk using the area, as well as I got that collared elk on there as well.
Most people here in Michigan are using the trail cameras for whitetails. You got some nice bucks on camera too.
Absolutely, and I have one of the biggest bucks I've seen, I guess, north of the 45th parallel in the pigeon. He's, the bigger animals seem to move faster on camera, not really standing very often. They're always moving, which I find very interesting. So, it's really nice to see big bucks in northern Michigan.
Okay, before we have to let you go, and I am running out of time, give us some tips for folks setting up your trail cameras. What have you learned over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's going to be a trial and error thing at first. You're going to have to try different areas. You're going to have to use multiple cameras. You're going to have to get good at scouting, knowing sign, whether that's scat, whether that's tracks, whether that's rub, whatever you can find out there. And, depending on your purpose of using the camera, understand how high you need to place your camera is key. So, whitetail, you don't have to place it 4 feet in the air on the tree. I mean, you can do 2.5 is what I prefer. If you're doing it on public land, always have a cable lock. There's always, people in the woods. They'll take your camera. You'll be out, $150, whatever your camera costs, and you won't know what's out there. And then just keep trying. I've had hundreds of videos that I don't post just because they're not of quality or the camera gets moved or something happens with it. So yeah, those are my tips I have for people if they're getting started in this, but you would be surprised on how many people do exactly what I do.
Well, they don't do it as well as you, Louis. I got to let you go. They don't do it. They don't do it as well as you do. I can tell you that, because you are using this technology in a very interesting way, Louis Good. I find it fascinating. Louis Wildlife Cameras online. Check him out, Louis Wildlife Cameras. We'll take a break. When we come back, Tyler Mihai of MUCC right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba on WCHT 600 AM, 93.5 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Killer Food Plots, Michigan-based family-owned Killer Food Plots. You know I love that. Now, I know that you're not putting in food plots right now, and you're probably not even hunting over food plots right now, but it is a big part of what we do, isn't it? And as we look forward to the springtime food plot planting season, why not work with a Michigan-based family-owned company that will do a good job for you? killerfoodplots.com, killerfoodplots.com. Now, Rich Krazan and crew are at many of the outdoor shows across the state this winter. That's where you can see them in person, killerfoodplots.com. Check them out. Speaking of these outdoor shows across the state, of course, the big Ultimate Fishing Show Detroit was last weekend. Outdoor Rama's coming up. One of the groups you can see at these shows is an organization that I have partnered with and work with very closely, MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Tyler Mihai is their Chief Information Officer, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Tyler, welcome. How have you been?
Good, Mike. How you been?
Real good, real good. So how did this last show go for you folks? And let me back up. Why do you do these shows? What's the reason for putting the resources into a 3-day show like that?
Yeah, so first off, I mean, it's just a great opportunity to connect with so many people. And the shows are great because we get to talk to members. People come in and they get updates, but then we also get to meet a lot of people that aren't members. So it's a really good opportunity just to kind of show what we do, tell our story, and just really get to meet a lot of the people that we don't always get the chance to meet. So the show was great. We were there Thursday through Sunday in traditional fashion. There was a lot of snow on Friday and Saturday, but that did not deter the masses, and they still came out, and it was great. Like I said, we talked to a ton of people and got to meet some really interesting people and talk about some really cool things. It
seems like that Ultimate Fishing Show, every year there's a snowstorm on that weekend.
Every year, from what I've heard.
Every year.
Yeah.
So if we stop by, say the Outdoor Rama Show is coming up here soon,
mm-hmm.
If we stop by the booth, who is going to be there? What is there? Give me the logistics, please.
Yeah, so I mean, most of our staff ends up taking a shift at some point, so you could meet really anyone. This weekend, it was myself, Steve Wyndham, Shannon Stover, and then we had a bunch of really good volunteers as well. So if you stop by, you get to learn about what MUCC does. We have a bunch of furs laid out, so the kids, we like to have a little challenge with the kids to go through and say what animal is what, and they get to go home with a magazine. We have lots of giveaways. We sell merchandise. We sell memberships there. But, again, it's another opportunity just for us to really explain what we do and why we do it and really just get to educate a lot of the people that stop by.
Now, who is Shannon? I haven't met her yet.
Shannon is our youth camp director. So she was there talking about the youth camp, all of the different sessions we have, and all of the great opportunities and things that you can do at youth camp.
Was she on your most recent podcast as well?
She was, yep. So that just released yesterday, and that was her first appearance on it.
Okay. Yeah, I do need to meet her because obviously I support that youth camp very strongly. In fact, we have a golf outing coming up again this summer for that, so I will look forward to that. What else you been up to, Tyler? Anything fun?
Yeah, I finally got out ice fishing last night. It's about time we have enough ice. I was just talking on the podcast. It feels like it's been years since we've had enough ice to go out. I only got out once last year, so taking advantage of the ice while we have it and just trying to get out as much as I can.
I'm assuming an inland lake, not looking for your honey hole, but what part of the state?
Yeah, so I fish all around Lansing. So I actually live on the Grand River. I'm on a canal off of that, so we've got some really good pike, a lot of bluegills. And then, some other inland lakes around Lansing, just really anywhere that has enough ice and has some fish. And again, ice fishing I was talking about is one of my favorites because it's so communal, and the opportunity to get to fish in tandem with so many other people is so much fun for me.
Well, you got my attention when you said you live on a canal of the Grand. How cool would that be?
It is very cool. There are some monster pike out of there. And I heard you talking about spearing this morning, and that's one of the things that I'm trying to pick up a little bit more and get more into pike spearing. I've done it a few times, and hopefully this is the year I really get to master the craft.
Well, the way the weather is setting up, Tyler, I think you may well get that chance. And listen, if you ever want to invite me down to fish the Grand in your backyard, I would be open to that.
Mike, you have an open invite. You come down and fish the Grand, and I'll go fish some walleye with you this summer.
Oh, so it's a trade-off. It's reciprocal. Okay. All right. Well, listen, that's a deal. You've got it. It would be worth it. Tyler, give us your plug for joining MUCC. Why should we do it?
Yeah, MUCC is the state's largest conservation organization, and, lately especially we've had a huge impact on a lot of things going on. So if you really want an opportunity to share your voice, I know there's some big issues in the outdoor world right now that a lot of people are really passionate about. So if you want the opportunity to express your voice and actually have a platform to share your voice and what's important to you, MUCC is a great organization, and there's a ton of reasons to join, but I think right now, if you're really passionate about some of the things going on, it's one of the best times to join.
MUCC.org, what is it, $35 a year, some crazy number?
$35 a year, that's right.
MUCC.org. Tyler, always a pleasure. I will take you up on your offer, encourage you to take me up on my offer to go fishing. Well, it wasn't really an offer, but I will offer it. All right, Tyler, we'll talk to you again. Tyler Mihai of MUCC, MUCC.org, MUCC.org. I said earlier in the hour that my thoughts were already moving toward open water fishing on Saginaw Bay with that new Angler Quest. I'm excited about that. Also excited about the Ask Avery segment coming up with Sergeant Mike Mshar answering what I think is a very, very interesting question. Details coming up. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org, securitycu.org. The way this segment works is you email me, you as a listener, a friend of mine, email me a question. You email it to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and I will answer it directly or reach out to someone who can help. This time around, George Hubka of Dowling sent me an email, and I'll read you a short excerpt of it. And this relates to a video I posted a few weeks ago from my buddy Johnny Bowler, the Bear Whisperer. He was driving a county plow truck, and he found a doe on the side of the road that had been partially eaten alive by a pack of coyotes. Johnny, because he's in a county truck, does not have a gun with him. A passerby comes up, sees the doe, takes out his gun, and shoots it. He puts it out of its misery. George asks a very, very good question. He says, can a person other than a CO or police officer legally shoot a deer in or out of season to put it out of its misery? If not, did that person who shot that doe you talked about then subject themselves to legal action or possible wildlife violations because of that situation? Now, obviously, I do not know the answer to this, so I'm reaching out to Sergeant Mike Mshar. Mike is a guy who we've had here on the show before. I have much respect for him and his family and their love for the outdoors. Sarge, welcome back. How are you?
Good, sir. How are you?
Wonderful. I sent you this question ahead of time, so you have seen this. What's the answer?
Well, the simple answer is no. No, there's no exemption that allows a person to stop and dispatch a wounded animal, a wounded deer, with a firearm or a weapon. There are some caveats to that, but the simple answer is no.
Okay, that's what I suspected. Let's go beyond this now. I mean, basic human nature. I mean, come on. Sarge, are you going to write me a ticket if I do this?
Completely understood. I get that. Everybody, we see these deer that have been hit by a vehicle and we want it to end its suffering. I do understand that. But there becomes a problem of, we can't have people just pulling a firearm out on the side of the road and discharging it because that can become dangerous. There also becomes an issue of trespass. We have to remember, too, let's say that deer is laying in the front yard of somebody else's house. That's trespass if you go onto their property. So that's why, the avenue there is to call law enforcement, have us come out and put the deer down. There are some options, real quickly. If you have this situation and you're somewhere where, let's say it's in your front yard, the season's open, you have a tag, you could then dispatch that animal and put your tag on it and harvest it. But just to pull up, side of the road, shoot a deer, no, the answer is no. A citizen is not allowed to do that.
I get it. But I think you know where I'm coming from, too. It's like, doggone
I do. Yeah, remember, we don't write the law, we just inform. But there are some reasons for it. 9 out of 10 could probably handle it, but then there's always going to be that one where, it isn't handled correctly. The other problem is you shoot a deer, it's laying there in the ditch. The next day somebody drives by and, hey, there's a gunshot deer. Well, then we get a call and we dispatch an officer thinking that it's a poached animal, and that becomes a problem too. Puts a little bit of work on us. So there's a lot of sideways stuff to it, but I do understand it.
Yeah. I get it, but honestly, I'm not going to say that I would have shot that deer and called you guys and say I did it, but I might have shot that deer and then called you guys and said I did it. You know?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I understand, and it does. It happens. I've got to answer what the law says.
I understand. But the law says again, you can't do it, period.
You can't do it. You can't just pull up and shoot an injured deer or other animal, for that matter, to put it out of its misery. The best thing to do is to call and try to get one of us or another local law enforcement out there, which we do. We go out daily and end up doing this with people.
Gotcha. Hey, a little bit of time left. Let's switch gears completely. Congrats to your son on that big, beautiful Michigan bull elk.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. He's still on cloud nine. He is still on. We're eating it on a regular basis, and he talks about it. I put his ivories on a necklace for him, and he tells everybody he comes in contact about it. So just a great experience for him.
And didn't he shoot a big bear this fall too?
He did. He's got a real nice bear, and I got a whitetail and a turkey, so he kind of has the Michigan slam going there.
Man, the Mshar family's having a great season, a great year.
We're eating well. We are eating well.
Mike, always a pleasure. Appreciate your time. Thanks for jumping on and answering this question, and I will reach out again in the future.
Yes, sir. Anytime. Take care.
I appreciate that. Sergeant Mike Mshar giving us I get it. It's the law. I get it. And I suspected that's what he was going to say. And I'll leave it at that. I will leave it at that. Thank you to Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. And thank you to George Hupka for reaching out, too. If you have a question, and I think this was a very, very good question, actually. If you have a question along this line or something else that you've been wondering about, you would like to get answered, something you want me to answer directly, or reach out to some of the folks I know who are some of my friends in law enforcement or the DNR or wildlife or MUCC or whatever, send me an email to Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and we'll see if we can't get it answered. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, Chris Kreiner talks about bobcat hunting in the northern lower. Then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Ieuter Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Yep, it's me, the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3, the final hour of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And we are right in the heart of wintertime now. Have you noticed, though, I know it's been cold, been real cold, but have you noticed the little bit of an increase in the amount of daylight? It's getting dark just a little bit later. It's getting light just a little bit earlier. I don't notice it so much in the morning as I do the evening. So it's coming. Way too early for me to have spring fever, but it is coming. And, I would be a lot better off if I would just embrace the wintertime outdoor activities that I used to years ago. Ice fishing and snowmobiling and skiing and, rabbit hunting and all these things that are such great fun. One thing I've never done that I'm fascinated by and would still love to do. And that is do a bobcat hunt. But here in Michigan, it's not like you buy a tag over the counter. I mean, if you're going to hunt bobcats, you got to think about it months in advance. And I never think about it months in advance. But I saw a post the other day. Actually, Chris Kreiner sent me a picture of him and a buddy in a northern Michigan swamp with two beautiful cats laid out in front of him. And I thought, you know what, this would be a great time to talk about bobcat hunting, that hunt in particular, and just hunting in general. And Chris has agreed to join us. In fact, he's with us now on the phone line. Chris, welcome back to the show. How have you been?
Great, Mike. Thanks again for inviting me on.
Always a pleasure. I think you're a very interesting guy. I mean, you got your fingers in a lot of stuff.
I try to dabble into a little bit of everything, that's for sure.
So how would you describe yourself?
Primarily a predator hunter. I really enjoy anything to do with predators. And then obviously the side note of things is I love the photo side of it when we have a successful hunt.
Well, you have set a new standard for nighttime coyote hunting pictures. I mean, what you've done with the lighting setup and the way you stage these things, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how long it took you to come up with this, but it's very cool. It's a very cool technique.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of years in the making to find the technique that worked out perfect and worked out for my style. And everybody, there's a handful out there that do a great job, and they have their own style as well. But yeah, this style has worked out great for me over the years.
Well, and I'm thinking, nighttime picture would be great for deer hunting or fishing and stuff, but for anything outdoors, actually. But it's the fact that you guys are primarily targeting these coyotes, in this case, after dark, that makes those nighttime pictures so cool.
Correct. Yeah, with coyote hunting, I don't do a lot of daytime coyote hunting, so the opportunity to take pictures during the day is minimal. So I'm always coyote hunting at night, and obviously that's the time where I can make those type of shots happen. In the case of the bobcat was a really different scenario. You can only hunt bobcats during the day, and there's a lot of confusion with some new hunters getting into it, thinking they can hunt them at night, but you cannot hunt bobcats at night. So having the opportunity to take photos during the day is something really out of my normal realm.
You've got light to work with.
Absolutely.
Why? Just going back a step. Why don't you hunt coyotes? You personally hunt coyotes much during the day?
Well, with family life, it's a lot harder for me to get out during the day as a general rule. So I can stick around with the family all day, hang out with the kids. When they go to bed, it's easier for me to go, all right, wife, I'm dipping out, and I'm going to go out and hit the coyote fields for a couple hours.
It makes for a lack of sleep, but a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you don't have to, with the cover of darkness, you don't have to be, tucked into fence rows, tucked into the brush and hidden really well from the coyotes. At night, you can stand out in the middle of the fields and make it happen, make them come out to you.
So why a bobcat hunt? How did that come about?
So when the center fire at night thing happened with coyotes, that really drove me into predators in general. So I believe it was the winter of 2017, 2018 was my first attempt at a bobcat hunt. And I spent a lot of time learning the bobcats, learning where the habitat that they wanted to be in. And it took me 5 years before I called in my first bobcat. So they are not something that you can just easily go out into the woods or the swamps and think that you're going to call in a bobcat. Even if you've got tracks or had scouting camera pictures this fall or whatever, those bobcats could be miles away by the time you're out there actually hunting them. So the best thing to do is learn their habitat. Where are they most likely going to be hanging out? And setting up on those locations. So that's where it all started. It was a huge learning curve. And now over the last 4 years, I've successfully called in 6 cats now.
Wow.
And 4 have met their maker.
So are they that different from a coyote?
They pretty much the same sounds, a little higher pitched distress sounds. I like running my typical stand is I will find a location next to a swamp, usually within 30 to 40 yards of a nice swamp edge. And by swamp edge, I mean, I think we've all seen it, and I'll describe kind of what I'm looking for a habitat scenario is you got all those dead trees in the swamp, and it's kind of got a whole bunch of cattails growing amongst them and some thick underlying brush all mixed in together. Those are the kind of swamps I'm looking for, but I'm looking for vastness. I'm not looking for like the 1 or 2 acres. I'm looking for, the 300, 400, maybe even 1,000 acre swamps that are just huge.
Wow.
And then, I'm looking for the big, obviously Michigan state land, there's many of these type of swamps within the state land. So you can find these vast swamps. And once you find those locations, the other spot I look for is kind of mixed in amongst those are like little islands or peninsulas going into the swamps that have those giant hemlock pines, some cedar trees, and stuff like that. And I like to tuck into those areas. And you're not going to get 100-yard shots where you're trying to set up. And your shots are generally going to be anywhere from 20 to maybe 40, 50 yards when you find those locations to set up. So, it's a crazy scenario. It took a lot of years for me to learn where their habitat was more likely to be, but so far that's been the game changer for me.
See, I thought you were going to tell me you hunt right in the heart, right in the thick of the stuff, but you say you hunt the edges.
I hunt the edges, because in this winter, thankfully, we had a good hard freeze, so a lot of those swamps froze over, so those cats can run straight across them and come to you. So that way I'm comfortable with hunting on the edges because I know I can draw them out. But if it's a thawed out year, we're not getting cold enough and those swamps are full of water, I have not had success on those kind of years.
And the reason you wouldn't want to go right into the heart of it on a year like that is what, Chris?
Well, on a year like that, you're going to get pretty wet yourself going back in there.
Yeah.
If you can find those peninsulas and get on those, that peninsula might go far enough deep into the swamp where maybe there's a cat on the other side of it and you might draw it in. I've just never had the years where it's thawed out. I have not called in cats. And I have a feeling that was the primary cause or reason behind it. When things are frozen up, it seems like pretty much my ratio is about a cat a day.
Wow.
That I make a trip north. So, it's a game changer for sure.
Are you using a decoy when you're calling cats?
Absolutely. So last year's bobcat was it snuck in on us at about 20 yards. And it got in behind a clump of cedar trees, and it was just sitting there. I could peer around the trees and I could see it, but it was honed in on that decoy. And it was only, I think at that point, probably 15 to 20 feet away from the collar. It was really close, and it was not moving any closer. So in that particular scenario, I killed the audio on the collar. I just let it stop and let the decoy do the work. Well, with the decoy sitting there spinning, that cat took the next 2-3 steps that I needed for me to be able to lip squeak to stop it and make the shot. Because, again, you're hunting this tight cover, so your windows of opportunity are very small.
20 feet?
It was 20 feet from the collar, 20
Wow.
yards from me. So, and by the time I actually shot it, it was probably within 10 feet of the collar. It was about ready to pounce. So the decoy is huge. It just, they're a cat. They see things like your home cats or whatever. You dangle a ball in front of them or whatever. They want to chase it and try to get it. This is the same thing. They think it's prey and they're going to pounce and have a meal.
We're talking about bobcat hunting in Michigan with Chris Kreiner. His website, C. Kreiner Media. Kreiner is Kreiner. C. Kreiner Media. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, a lot more questions for Chris. I am fascinated by this. I've never done it, but I see these pictures of these beautiful bobcats and hunters with a big smile, and it just looks like a lot of fun. And Chris had a hunt, and I'll ask him this after the break. He's got a picture of him and a buddy. Were these two different hunts, or was this the same hunt? I don't know, but we'll ask about that and lots more after the break. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. You can hear us on the other side of the state. Taos, WIOS 1480 AM 106.9 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM 95.3 FM. Glad to have you along with us regardless of where you are listening, when you are listening, or how you are listening. The fact that you're hearing my voice right now, a voice that I can feel a little bit of a frog in my throat this week, and I apologize for that. The fact that you can hear the show means so very much to me. I do really appreciate it. The fact that I can sit here every week for 3 hours talking about the great outdoors, the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan, and talking with guys like Chris Kreiner about subjects that are just so very interesting, and that is the concept of bobcats. Now, Chris, you can only hunt cats in the northern part of the state and the UP, but we can actually find them all across the state now, can't we?
Correct, yes. And actually last year, the DNR did extend a unit further south, Unit H, which covers kind of like the Lansing Grand Rapids area.
Really?
So they did move the unit down south. And there's cats right around my location. They're just few and far between, and they're a little harder to find. So I do have a tendency to go north to find a higher population.
The first time I ever heard the cry of a bobcat, I thought the dead were coming back to life. I mean, it was terrifying because I didn't know what it was at first.
That's one sound I have not heard yet. So I will take your word for it. I hear it's quite the eerie sound.
Now that I know what it is, it's cool. But when I didn't know, it was pretty interesting. In the process of getting a bobcat license is you've got to apply last fall to get one?
You don't even need to apply. So when you buy your fur harvester's license, at that time, as long as you have until October, I believe, 31st to get your free bobcat kill tag. They'll give you 2 tags, which one you could use both tags up in the UP if you wanted to, or one in the UP and one in the Lower Peninsula. So you're only allowed 1 cat out of the Lower Peninsula for your tags.
So the picture that you sent me that I actually posted on my Facebook page of you and your buddy, was that one hunt or is it 2 different hunts?
So a quick rundown of the day. One of the locations where I've called 3 cats in over the last few years was one of my favorite spots to hunt. Well, when we pulled back there, we had heard, on our way back to this location, we had heard a gunshot and we heard hounds. We get back there, sure enough, the houndsmen, they had a successful hunt. They ended up finding a bobcat back in that location, and it can be discouraging. Obviously, this was one of the stands I look forward to most out of the day, but great for them. They had a successful hunt, a great male tom bobcat, and we had a little conversation with them about their hunt and everything, and then we moved on. I was like, I told my buddy Justin there, I told him, you know what, there's this one spot that I've always been intrigued about. It looks interesting. It's a high-rise peninsula that goes right in with swamp on both sides, and it goes way back into the swamp. I said, let's go back there and check it out. And so we drove down. It was probably about a 4-mile drive from the last location. We drove down there, and we made about a 300-400 yard hike down this peninsula, and there was just coyote tracks everywhere. And we wanted to get into a location where we had a decent visual of everything. And I told him, I said, let's set up here. I said, if nothing else, we should call in a coyote because there's tracks everywhere. And so I usually set the caller about 20 yards in front of us, and so we can see anything that's trying to come up and flank the caller. Well, we no more than, I don't think it was 15 seconds after I put on a rabbit distress, I seen a coyote working through the swamp behind me and starting to come in behind me. So I was this is the first year I've hunted with a shotgun, and Justin didn't see it coming. I spun around with the shotgun waiting for this coyote to come up out of the swamp, and it got behind a brush pile at about 25 to 30 yards from us. And I just needed it to step out from outside that brush pile, and it never did. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? So I'm slowly moving to change the sound on a collar. I'm like, okay, maybe a slight change in the sound will bring him out. I did that, nothing. And I'm like, what in the world? Where did he go? There's no way he could have left without me seeing, except for this one little alley. Maybe he left down that alley. So with the nighttime hunting and everything, I carry thermal optics with me all the time. So I had my thermal monocular on me. So I slowly pull that out of my pocket and I look down in that brush pile and I don't see that coyote anywhere. So I scanned the entire swamp bottom because it was really dark down there, hard to see. I scanned the entire swamp bottom and I see what I thought initially was 2 coyotes sitting further down into the swamp. I'm like, oh, okay, there's a couple more right there. So again, they were just sitting there. And so I switched the sound on the collar to vole squeaks is what it's called. So it's just essentially high-pitched mouse squeaks. And one of them started moving up the hillside. And I'm like, oh, my goodness, that's a bobcat. And I'm like, there's 2 bobcats there.
Wow.
What are the odds? You know,
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of hunters, bobcat hunters, even around the country. And, like, there's areas where there's a high population of bobcats. And they're like, I've only seen a pair of bobcats together, like, once, you know. So it was very, very unusual to have 2 bobcats together. So that first bobcat moved up, and Justin seen that first one moving up. He did not see the second one. And so the first one continued working up towards the collar about 25 to 30 yards away from me, and I pulled up. He gave me a perfect broadside shot, pulled up with the shotgun, and I shot, and I hit him, but it wasn't a great hit. He ran down the hillside. He stopped again, and I was able to shoot a second time, and then it dropped him, anchored him. He was done. And I hollered over to Justin, he was only about 10 feet away from me. I'm like, Justin, down in the swamp, there's a second cat. Well, that second cat didn't leave. It just sat there even after my 2 shots. So Justin was able to swing down into the swamp, and he was able to shoot that second cat.
Wow.
So to have a double on cats, oh, goodness, talk about the excitement and the rush of that hunt.
Man, that's going to be a hunt that you'll remember forever.
That's the hunt that I'll never top. I mean, the odds of that ever happening again. Wow. I've been telling some buddies that we should probably be buying lotto tickets because that was probably as lucky as we'll ever be.
Wow. And okay, what you have told me makes me think of several questions now, including so coyotes and bobcats will intermingle. You'll see them in the same countryside.
Well, yes. However, I think that was the reason those cats coming in, I think was the reason why that coyote held up. I don't know. That coyote was coming on such a string, and I don't know why he stopped. He didn't. Our wind was favorable. He didn't have a clue we were there, and he just stopped all of a sudden. So that really threw me for a loop. And it didn't make sense until the fact now I see these 2 bobcats. So I think those bobcats were moving in at the same time as the coyote, and I think they were kind of confusing each other, and that's why the cats were sitting there, the coyote was sitting there, and they weren't moving forward.
Okay, next question is, you mentioned you had a shotgun. I noticed that in the picture. I'm not used to seeing you with a shotgun.
This is the first year. I just because of the tight quarters that we're hunting, I'm like, man, a rifle just always seems like there's not a lot of openings to try to squeeze a rifle round through. So I really wanted to change it up. I hear guys talking about using a shotgun. I watch a lot of videos. So I'm like, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And I definitely learned some things this weekend. I think I got to work on my patterning with the shotgun a little bit better. But it was very effective. And I'm looking forward to seeing what I can do additionally. I'm looking forward to try to do some coyote hunting with the shotgun.
Really?
That's something I still haven't done. Yeah.
So what load are you using for bobcats?
So I was using number 4 buckshot. I believe there's like 40 or 50 pellets or something in that particular load. A lot of the guys online, because I posed this question shortly after my bobcat hunt, I'm like, man, what are you guys using? I felt like this just was still a little sloppy. It wasn't as clean as I wanted it to be. And a lot of guys recommended TSS, the tungsten loads, which obviously are very expensive, but you're pushing closer to 100 pellets in one of those rounds versus 50 pellets. So I think you get a much tighter pattern.
Well, and you talk about patterning, which reminds me of what you would do for a springtime turkey hunt. Pattern your shotgun.
Absolutely, and this shotgun does great on turkeys. So I was really expecting a little bit better out of the shotgun, out of the buckshot load, and it just didn't quite perform as well as I wanted it to. But I'm going to get prepared and ready for next season.
So, what do you figure the range is on that shotgun? And when it's patterned nice and tight, what are you looking at?
And when it's patterning the way it's supposed to, a lot of guys are saying 50 to 60 yards should be an effective range.
So, okay, next question. When I posted your picture, I had some people come on and say, well, I would never shoot anything I'm not going to eat, which my response is, has you ever killed a mouse in a trap? So don't say that. But I have heard that mountain lion is outstanding. Do people ever eat bobcats?
I've heard of a few people eating bobcats. They particularly talk about like the back straps and stuff. I personally have not tried one. And by the time we come home, get them to the taxidermist to get skinned and stuff like that, they're being left out in the environment too long, and they're not cooled properly. And so I wouldn't want to trust that meat to ingest. But I know guys that do cougar hunt or mountain lion hunt out west, and they'll process the full cat and put it in their freezer.
Yeah, I've got a buddy who's eaten just about everything, and he says the mountain lion he shot out there is the best thing he's ever had. So very interesting. Chris, I always enjoy our conversations, especially about something like this bobcat hunt, because everything about this to me is new and interesting. And Charlie Root, who's in here in the studio with me, he said, I didn't even know we had bobcats. So it's nice to have a conversation like this just to make people aware.
Yes, absolutely. It was great having this conversation with you.
All right, Chris, always a pleasure. Let's stay in touch. Chris Kreiner, predator hunter extraordinaire, nighttime photographer extraordinaire. You can learn more on his website, ckreinermedia.com, ckreinermedia.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, I got to shoot the breeze about a couple of things here. And then wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar will help us wrap up the whole show. And Dave let me know last week he's back to work. I thought the guy had retired forever. But knowing Dave, nope. He's back to work. He's cooking for somebody else, but we'll touch base with that, and I suspect we'll have a recipe as well. All coming up here in this third hour of this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. You can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on WSGW 100.5 FM and 790 AM. I am in the studios of WSGW right now. Now, look, I've been telling you the last couple of weeks, a guy named Jonathan is trying to get me to switch studios, okay? But another guy named Charlie says I don't have to switch studios. You know Charlie Rood, of the Charlie fame. Charlie reminded me that this week 20 years ago, we did the first Outdoor Magazine radio show here at WSGW. Charlie, that's kind of a big deal, I think, isn't it?
It's a very big deal, in my opinion.
And it also makes me one of the veterans here at SGW.
You are ranking fourth on the list of longest-running hosts at the station at this time.
Isn't it interesting? And people say, hey, we want to hear Charlie, we want to hear John once in a while. So I think this is nice. But isn't it interesting how the technology of the show has changed as far as distribution, how we get it to the people who listen to it?
Used to record your show, having it transferred onto CDs, 3 hours. The next day, had to overnight it through FedEx to Lansing. And today...
Upload it to the satellite, and boom, it's gone.
Just like that.
Charlie, I want to thank you for all your help over the years and helping to make this happen. John has come along recently, but Charlie's been here since the beginning. I've been doing this show over 30 years, but have it be 20 years out of this studio right here, this building right here. That means a lot to me, Charlie, and I appreciate that very much.
Well, and we're glad you're with us, and we appreciate it, too. It's been an honor and a pleasure working with you.
I always call SGW my flagship station, at the risk of making some of the others mad, because I value all of my affiliates, but I appreciate Charlie. I appreciate Jonathan as well. 20 years in one spot. I've never been 20 years anywhere. When I worked at Channel 12 in Flint, I was there 2.5 years. When I worked at Channel 5 in Saginaw, I was only there 11 years. So, doing this radio show for so long, and here, 20 years out of SGW, this is kind of a little milestone here. Kind of a minor milestone. What else is going on? I enjoyed the conversation with Chris Kreiner talking about bobcat hunting. And when he talked about when the swamps freeze over, then it gives the cats the ability to travel a little bit easier, and they can respond to your call easier. Isn't it also the case that is very interesting for me as a person or a hunter, when the swamps freeze, how it gives you access into areas you couldn't get the rest of the year? These big swamps that you don't want to go into or are reluctant to go into, say, during the deer season because they're wet and they're cold and they're hard to get into, this time of year they freeze up. You can wander anywhere you want. You can see what's going on. Good scouting tool, and it's just kind of fun to get back into those areas that you normally otherwise wouldn't be able to. Okay, what else is going on? Monday. Tickets go on sale Monday for our big Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction. This is the 8th annual, the 8th one we've had. Proceeds go to benefit my church and school, Trinity Monitor. I mean, there are things at a 140-year-old church and things at a school that need to be done, repairing, keeping things working, and hopefully some improvements as well. So that's what this money is used for. This is Saturday, March 1st at the Great Hall in Midland. Tickets are $100 a piece. And you might say, well, that's kind of a lot. But you know what? It's not. For what we provide with an excellent meal, the fellowship, the camaraderie, the chance to bid on some of these items, we've never had anybody walk away from there and go, oh, that was not worth it. So $100 a piece. If you go to my Facebook page, I have a flyer, a brochure posted there on the page that has a QR code. You can scan that QR code and buy your tickets directly. There's also a phone number on there where you can call the church. But Saturday, March 1st, we always sell out. If you are interested in joining us, I would love to have you there. I'm part of the crew, right? But I'm in some ways kind of the front guy on this. I'm the MC, the auctioneer. There are a lot of people involved to make this happen. We couldn't do it with just a handful of us. So we've got a good committee, a great committee, really dedicated to bringing you the best event possible. There will be a lot of items to bid on. Fishing trips, hunting trips, fishing gear, hunting gear, gun raffles, all the usual stuff. That is Saturday, March 1st at the Great Hall in Midland. Again, tickets go on sale Monday. Go to my Facebook page, Mike Avery Outdoors on Facebook, and we will have all of the information there. The 24th, a few days after that, the winners of the Pure Michigan Hunt will be drawn. I should say I will be drawn as a winner of the Pure Michigan Hunt. There are 3 winners drawn, so I hope that you are one of those 3 winners as well. What else? I'm running out of time now. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we're going to wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. I'm going to ask him again, where is it, Dave, that you are cooking? Because he told me last week, and to be honest, it's in Standish, but I don't remember the name of the restaurant. That and hopefully a recipe as well coming up from wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery. My website, by the way, is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. If you've been with me before, you know that we wrap up each week's show with the wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, who last week announced some very, very big news that Dave is back in the kitchen. David, welcome back, my friend. How are you?
Enjoying life. How about yourself?
I'm enjoying life. That's the only option there is, right?
Right. Exactly.
And remind me, Dave, I remember it's in Standish, but I don't remember the name of the restaurant.
King's Dish.
King's Dish. Thank you.
The man and woman that own the place, their last name is King, and it's kind of a takeoff on Standish. So it's like he was a teacher in Standish Sterling School, and that's what the young people called Standish, the dish.
Excellent. And you're there Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays, correct?
Yep. I'm starting to do my specials.
Oh, excellent. That's so exciting. I will make it a point to come up and see you there, Dave. But in the meantime, how about a recipe? We didn't do one last week. I'm jonesing.
Okay, we got page 106, portobello and venison puttanesca. It's we did this for the show, and we used to make this special like crazy.
Yes.
So portobello mushrooms are, as everybody knows, is a big, large, firm mushroom that kind of tastes like meat almost. It's real nice and firm. And puttanesca refers to the lady of the evening. So this is a sinfully good sauce. So we need about 6 to 7 ounces of venison steak per person, 1 large portobello cap per person, and they could be anywhere, 4 or 5 inches across, and a 12-ounce can of whole peeled diced tomatoes and drained, 1 cup of pitted. Well, you could make about 3/4 of a cup. 1 cup might be a lot. So of pitted Kalamata olives sliced. 1 to 2 teaspoons of capers, more or less to your taste. I really like capers, so it really is a good addition to this dish. A medium onion diced fine, 1 yellow pepper sliced medium thin, 2 to 3 cloves of garlic diced fine, a jar of beef gravy, 1 to 2 ounces of Jim Beam, and a couple ounces of sweet Marsala wine. There's 2 different varieties. There's a dry and a sweet. We want the sweet. Flour, olive oil, and fresh ground pepper. So as going to grind the pepper over the venison steaks and then pound it between 2 sheets of plastic, and that's going to drive the pepper in and impart a lot more flavor than just sprinkling it on top, and a lot of it would fall off during the browning process. So you want to cut the stems off the mushrooms and get rid of them. Dredge the meat and the caps in flour, and in a very, very hot pan, you want to brown the steaks in a small amount of olive oil. Just brown them off, take them out. So you want to remove while very rare. Add more oil and brown the caps and cook and cover on both sides. In the same pan with a small amount of oil, you can saute the onions, the garlic, yellow peppers for a few minutes and flambe with Jim Beam and Marsala wine away from the stove. After the flames die down, you can add the diced tomatoes and the gravy. You want to reduce that by a half. Now put the mushroom caps back in the sauce, cover them up, finish cooking for a couple, 3 or 4 minutes, just to cook them through and warm them up. Add the meat back to the sauce and cook it to your desired temperature, whether it be still nice and rare for a little while or medium, rare or medium. And then place the mushroom cap with the gill side up, the bottom of it actually, and put the steak on top and spoon the sauce over the top. And this is just, we sold so much of this. It was great. It was a wonderful special.
I remember this one vividly. It was so good.
Right.
Speaking of specials, Dave, now what will you cook at the King's Dish? Will you cook some of the recipes from the old Oscar and Joey's?
Yeah. We ordered some venison stew meat, so we're going to do a venison stew, kind of venison tips in a red wine sauce this week. We're going to do blueberry walleye, and I've been doing salmon with shrimp sauce, and the venison or the ribeye with Marchand Van sauce, which is a red wine and mushroom sauce.
Wonderful. Oh, real quick, too, you mentioned capers in this dish. Little green things. They look like small peas. Is that right?
Yeah, they're about the size of a pea, a baby LeSueur pea, and they're kind of sour, and they really impart a great flavor. They harvest them over in Europe and ship them over here in jars. They're already pickled. It's wonderful, wonderful. Use it. Don't just discard it.
All right, David. Always a pleasure. Congrats on the new gig. I would encourage people to stop by King's Dish in Standish and see my good friend, wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, and check out page 106, Venison Puttanesca. Thank you, my friend. We'll talk next week.
Thanks.
Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you, because if you weren't listening, there would be no reason to do the show. And then what would I do? I don't know. I don't know what I would do. But I enjoy being here every week for 3 hours talking about the great outdoors, the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond. Please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And I would encourage you to send me an email, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Let me know what's on your mind, what we like, what you don't like. And I will talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.